All right.
Hello, my name is Kaleab Refutation, and I am refuting the claim that excuse me, colony collapse disorder will have a detrimental impact on California's agriculture and will increase the price of many of those crops. First of all, the advocate opens up by stating that the colony collapse disorder is happening in California, as if to say it's something that's just taking place in California and merely California. But as I would like to point out that this is a scientific fact that's accepted by scientists throughout the world, especially recognized by the United States Agriculture Department, as well as the California Department of Food and Agriculture. So therefore, I don't see what the argument of bringing up whether that California is dealing with the colony collapse disorder, also known as CCDP, rather CCD. And as the advocate also failed to mention that the effects of drought in California related to the decline in colonies was an effect. She actually failed to mention that drought was as one of the reasons as to why pollination has decreased. And since the CCD came about in 2006, it was recognized by the USDA as well as the CD, the California Department of Food and Agriculture in 2008. And what they found is, since there is no clear evidence as to what is causing pollination, the CCD, they have just left it up to theorists, to scientists to just bring about as to what the evidence is that's causing this. But many scientists have agreed upon the fact that the reason for this is the decline in the amount of rainfall, and notably California has had a drought since the year 2006, ironically, which is the same year that CCD started taking place and became relevant. I would like to point out also that since 2006, California has been having a decline in rain of about 10 to 12% each year, and increasing as we speak. The second claim that the advocate makes is California is dependent on honeybees and pollination, and certainly can't disagree with that, but definitely fail to mention like the effects that it has on California, seeing as how California makes up 80% of the almond pollination, which the advocate failed to point out. But she also failed to mention that of those 80% pollination, that 70% of it is exported, so therefore the effects will not be on the residents or the people of California, but rather on the people that are gonna be buying the products that are from this pollination. So therefore the increase in our food is highly unlikely, seeing as how we're only using 10% of what we're producing. The third argument that she makes is that CCD will create a spike in prices due to lack of cross-pollination. And it's kind of like a repeat of what her second thing was, in the sense that she's saying, and I quote, she says, there will not be enough fruits and vegetables for people to purchase, which is quite absurd if you ask me, because there has not been a decline that's to that evident, seeing as how the decline in the industry of pollination is about 40%, but still not that severe to have the effect of an increase at the supermarket when we go to buy our fruits and vegetables. And also, I'd like to point out that she failed to mention that the California organic farmers who use pollination lost 5%, whereas industry pollination lost about 40% of their colonies, which is purely relevant, seeing as how we're seeing it from the perspective of we only have one means of producing pollination. Rather, we're not looking at the aspect of organic pollination, which is one of the main reasons why this epidemic is taking place, is that a lot of the bees are being fumigated by, and trying to tackle whatever mice, or no, not mice, I forget the word, but and trying to fight those things. And as the campaign by the U.S. and many scientists in the U.S. have shown, that the campaign is called Indiegogo, that the decline in the pollination, especially almond pollination, is specifically due to the drought, and also because of fumigation of the bees. And in conclusion, I would like to point out that colony collapse disorder is indeed an epidemic that's taking place, but is an epidemic that has not found a solution, and therefore is not something that the public should have to worry about, seeing as how it's not as severe as the advocate claimed to be. And that is all. Thank you.
Just us.
Yeah, I was waiting on
I was like, what the heck is this?
All right, the advocate's claims clearly labeled. You kind of basically treat this as it is a descriptive statement as opposed to an argument that there's not really much inference. You're not going to challenge the notion that colony collapse disorder is occurring. There's a little bit of discussion about what the causality is and that it's related to the amount of rainfall or the drought, which I think is a good argument if you've got some follow-up to suggest that we have reason to believe that the drought or the rainfall issue is coming to an end, that there's going to be a change. But I didn't hear any information about that suggesting that there's going to be a change or that there's anything different. So having told me why colony collapse disorder is happening to some degree in California, now what am I supposed to do about it? How am I supposed to think about it? I don't know. You're basically conceding the idea that it's happening. Now, the advocate may not have been making much of an inference, but you're not making enough of a response there. The second argument that you make that I think is more useful is the argument that it's not having a substantial impact on our production of produce. And I think that's the argument that would be easy for you to develop some information on. Has California had a decline in the number of almonds that they are exporting? Have they had a decline in the amount of crops that we've produced? All you have to do is look at California agricultural records over the last 7 years, since 2006, and see what has the trend been. Do we continue to produce more and more food, or have we been producing less? If we've been producing more, that contradicts the advocate's position completely. And that's to me the key to the information that you could have on that point. By the way, I did hear some information. Let's keep our fingers crossed that it's all good luck, that this is going to happen, that the drought is likely to be substantially reduced because we're expecting an El Nino next year. So if we get an El Nino kind of effect, it's going to mitigate a lot of the drought kinds of things. The other thing that you point out is that there appears to be some developing scientific consensus that CCD is affiliated not only with the drought conditions, but also with, it sounds like you're talking about pesticides that are going on along there. And so in essence, that if we now know what the cause is, there are plenty of ways that we can mitigate that. We can use IPC, integrated pest management tools that minimize the degree of the need to use pesticides themselves. There are other strategies that you can deal with, the way in which they're applied. By the way, it seems to me, I don't remember exactly, but it seemed to me that one of the arguments that the advocate made was that California was having to import honeybees in order to do this. And I'm going, okay, so let's import some more. Well, why, is there a limitation on the number of honeybees that can be bred, produced, turned out, exported, something like that? If there's a limit to the number of honeybees, then maybe we should be worried about this colony collapse disorder. The question, though, is did the advocate ever show that there was a limitation? See, I think there's some arguments that could be made here. What you do is basically kind of summarize what the advocate's claim is and suggest, well, it's not really something to worry about, but you don't tell us why we shouldn't be worried about it. And I think you need a stronger argument on that. Okay, thank you. I'm glad we got those out.